2 weeks ago, the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses announced one of the most significant doctrinal reversals in the organization's modern history. Autologous blood, your own blood, drawn, stored, and returned to your body, is no longer forbidden. It is now, in the language of the Watchtower, a matter of personal conscience. You already know this. If you follow this channel, you heard it the day it dropped. But here is what most people are not talking about. The announcement was the headline. What comes next is the machinery. Right now, across more than 120,000 congregations worldwide, a quiet but enormous operation is being set into motion. Letters have been sent to bodies of elders. Training sessions are being scheduled. Demonstrations are being prepared. And a document that millions of Jehovah's Witnesses have carried in their wallets for decades, the blood card, is about to become obsolete overnight. This is not a video about the doctrine change. This is a video about the rollout. What exactly are they training people to say? What will the new blood card look like? And why is the way they handle this transition possibly more revealing than the announcement itself? If this kind of deep investigative content matters to you, take a moment to subscribe and hit the notification bell. It helps more than you know. Part 1. The letter. They don't want you to see every major policy shift inside the Watchtower organization follows the same operational pattern. First comes the public-facing announcement, a governing body update, a JW broadcasting segment, carefully filmed, tightly scripted. That is the part the world sees. But the real instructions travel through a different channel entirely. Letters to the bodies of elders. These letters are confidential by design. They are read aloud during elders-only meetings, never distributed in print to rank-and-file members, and frequently contain directives that go well beyond what the public announcement reveals. They specify timelines, outline procedures, and dictate exactly how local elders should manage the transition on the ground. According to multiple sources within the organization, a letter regarding the autologous blood update was dispatched to congregations within days of the March 20th announcement. The directive reportedly instructs elders to schedule a special meeting, separate from the regular midweek and weekend services, to discuss the contents of Governing Body Update Number 2 with the entire congregation. The expected window for these meetings is early April, which means that by the time you are watching this video, many congregations around the world may already be holding them. But here is the critical detail. These meetings are not simply about informing the congregation that the policy has changed. If that were the goal, a 5-minute announcement from the platform would suffice. Instead, what appears to be planned is something far more structured. A training exercise designed to reshape how every Jehovah's Witness understands, explains, and defends the organization's position on blood. What training actually looks like. If you have never been a Jehovah's Witness, the word training might conjure images of a classroom or a workshop. Inside the organization, it means something quite specific. It means demonstrations. Demonstrations are a long-standing feature of witness meetings. 2 or more members act out a scripted scenario on the platform. A conversation at a door, a workplace encounter, a discussion with a doctor. The purpose is not spontaneous dialogue. It is rehearsal. The congregation watches a model interaction and is expected to internalize both the language and the logic being presented. In the context of the blood doctrine change, these demonstrations would likely follow a predictable structure. Imagine a scenario in which a witness is approached by a coworker who has seen the news. The coworker asks something along the lines of, "So your church finally allows blood transfusions?" The witness, following the scripted response, would clarify that, no, this is not a reversal of the blood doctrine. The scriptural principle remains the same. What has been clarified is that the Bible does not specifically address the use of one's own blood in a medical setting. Therefore, it is a matter of personal conscience. Notice the framing. The word clarification is doing enormous work in that sentence. It transforms a 65-year prohibition into something that was always meant to be a personal decision. The organization simply had not gotten around to saying so yet. This is the narrative the training is designed to install. Another likely scenario would involve a witness speaking with a medical professional. The witness would be coached to explain that while they may now consider autologous blood storage, they still refuse allogeneic transfusions, blood from other people. They would be trained to articulate this distinction calmly, clearly, and without revealing any internal confusion or doubt. The goal is uniformity. 9 million people, speaking in one voice, telling the same story, in the same measured tone. The blood card problem. Now we come to what may be the most logistically complicated element of the entire rollout: the blood card. For decades, Jehovah's Witnesses have carried a document formerly known as the Advanced Medical Directive and Durable Power of Attorney, the DPA card. This wallet-sized legal document instructs medical professionals that the bearer refuses blood transfusions under any circumstances. It names healthcare agents, typically fellow witnesses, who are authorized to make decisions on the patient's behalf if they are unconscious. And critically, it includes a specific clause in which the bearer explicitly refuses to predonate and store their own blood for later infusion. That clause is now in direct contradiction with the organization's updated position. Every DPA card currently in circulation, and there are millions of them, contains language that the governing body itself has just declared to be a matter of personal conscience, not an organizational requirement. In medical and legal terms, these documents are obsolete. This creates an extraordinary problem. Emergency room physicians, surgeons, and anesthesiologists around the world have, for decades, relied on these cards as a definitive statement of a witness patient's wishes. When an unconscious witness arrives in an emergency department, the blood card has served as the controlling legal document. Now, a physician looking at a card signed before March 20th, 2026, has no way of knowing whether the patient still holds the views expressed on that card, or whether they have since exercised their newly available conscience and would in fact accept their own stored blood. The AJWRB, Advocates for Jehovah's Witness Reform on Blood, has already issued a public advisory urging medical professionals not to rely on any blood card dated before the announcement without a direct conversation with the patient. This is sound advice, but it also highlights a deeper institutional failure. The Watchtower has built an entire medical liaison infrastructure around a document that is now, functionally, unreliable. So what comes next? Multiple sources suggest the organization will issue a completely redesigned DPA card. The new version would presumably remove the clause prohibiting autologous storage, while retaining the refusal of allogeneic transfusions. But here is where the speculation becomes genuinely interesting. Some have suggested the organization may move away from a standardized card altogether, shifting toward a more individualized document in which each witness specifies their own preferences. If that happens, it would represent a fundamental change in how the organization manages medical compliance, and it would raise serious questions about whether the real motivation is theological clarity or legal self-protection. Consider the landscape of litigation the Watchtower currently faces. Lawsuits are active or pending in multiple countries involving Jehovah's Witnesses who died after refusing blood transfusions. In each of these cases, the central legal question is the same. To what extent was the patient's refusal truly voluntary, and to what extent was it the product of organizational coercion? The old system made this question relatively straightforward. The organization published an explicit prohibition. It distributed a standardized document. Elders monitored compliance. Hospital liaison committees showed up at the bedside. The infrastructure of enforcement was visible and well documented. The new system is far more ambiguous, and that ambiguity may be the point. By declaring autologous blood a matter of personal conscience, the governing body has placed the decision, and crucially, the responsibility, squarely on the shoulders of the individual witness. If a witness now refuses autologous storage and later suffers medical consequences, the organization can point to the March 26th update and say, "We gave them the choice. They chose not to accept it. That is not our responsibility." This is the same pattern the organization has followed with blood fractions for more than 2 decades. By allowing individual components of blood, albumin, immunoglobulins, clotting factors, as a conscience matter, the Watchtower created a framework in which the organization sets the boundaries, but individual members bear the consequences. The autologous update extends this logic one step further, and the training being rolled out in April serves a dual purpose in this regard. It does not merely inform members of the change. It creates a documented record, visible to elders, observed by congregations, that the information was delivered, that members were educated, and that the decision was theirs to make. In a courtroom, that paper trail could prove invaluable. Part 5. The questions. No one is asking. There are questions that will almost certainly not appear in any congregation training session, but they deserve to be raised. First, what happens to the hospital liaison committees? These committees, more than 1,500 worldwide, were built to help witness patients refuse blood. Their entire training, their relationships with hospitals, their medical literature packages, all of it was designed around a single premise. Witnesses do not accept blood. Now that premise has a significant asterisk. Will the HLC members themselves be retrained? Will their presentations to hospitals be updated? Will they now advocate for autologous options alongside bloodless surgery? Or will they quietly continue to steer patients away from any blood use at all? Second, what about the elders who enforce compliance? For decades, witnesses who accepted a forbidden blood product faced the possibility of being viewed as having disassociated themselves from the congregation, a designation that triggers mandatory shunning by every witness they know, including family members. If a witness accepted autologous storage before March 20th, they could have lost everything. After March 20th, the same decision carries no consequence. Will the organization acknowledge the injustice of that timeline? Will any form of amnesty be extended to those who were punished under the old rule? Third, and perhaps most uncomfortable of all, what about the dead? AJWRB has estimated that since 1961, more than 30,000 Jehovah's Witnesses have died as a result of the blood prohibition. An unknown but significant portion of those deaths involved patients who might have survived with autologous procedures. The governing body has offered no acknowledgement, no apology, no memorial. The training sessions in April will not mention them. They never do. What is happening right now inside the organization of Jehovah's Witnesses is not simply a doctrinal update. It is a carefully managed communications operation. The training sessions, the demonstrations, the revised blood cards, the carefully worded talking points. All of it is designed to achieve a single outcome, to make 9 million people absorb a fundamental contradiction without ever recognizing it as one. Yesterday, storing your own blood was a violation of God's law. Today, it is your personal choice, and the organizational machinery that once punished you for making that choice will now train you to defend the organization's right to have changed its mind. The Watchtower has always been skilled at managing transitions. They do not announce reversals. They announce clarifications. They do not admit errors. They reveal new light. And by the time the training is finished, by the time every congregation has held its special meeting, and every witness has practiced their carefully rehearsed response, the history will have been quietly rewritten. The prohibition that cost lives will become a misunderstanding that no one is responsible for. Pay attention to what happens in the coming weeks. Not to what the governing body says, but to what the elders are told to do. If you are a current or former Jehovah's Witness and you have access to the elder letter regarding this training, or if you attend one of these congregation meetings and can share what was discussed, reach out. Your voice matters, your experience matters, and the truth about what happens behind closed Kingdom Hall doors deserves to be heard. Share this video with someone who needs to see it. And if you haven't already, subscribe, because this story is far from over.